Hello, everyone, and welcome again, or for the first time, to Explore Your Roots, where we highlight the life of an ancestor of mine, and maybe yours too. So today, we are going to feature an ancestor of mine from my dad's side of the family, named Christiane Andersdatter. So tune in to learn more about her life, some neat snippets about her character, and her immigration story. All right, so as usual, my investigation for this episode came from genealogy websites and some written stories I found. So to begin, Christiane is my fourth great-grandmother, and my connection to her begins with me, then goes through my dad, then his mom, my grandma Ruth Ann, then her mother Genevieve, then her father Frederick, then his mother Nicolina, then her mother is the topic of this episode, Christiane Andersdatter. So Christiane Andersdatter was the eighth of 9 children born to Anders Thogerson and Kirsten Marie Andersdatter. She was born on July 12, 1809 in the city of Hjørring in Denmark. This city is located almost on the northernmost tip of Denmark. Unfortunately, as is the case for a lot of people, little is known about her youth. The next recorded event we have of her is her marriage on October 26, 1839, to a Thomas Olsen when she was 21 years old. Thomas had 3 children already when they married from 2 different wives who had passed away within a 2-year time span, but we know that Christiane took the children in and helped raise them. Christiane and Thomas had 12 children total, plus the 3 additional adopted children. So those children were Anders, born in 1826, Anne, born also in 1826, and another Anders, born in 1830. Then the children that Christiane bore were Marie, born in 1831, Otto, born in 1833, Antomine in 1835, Maren in 1837, Godfred in 1839, Andrea in 1841, James in 1844, Nicolina, of whom I come through, in 1846, Kirsten in 1848, Soren in 1850, Elvine in 1853, and the last child, Decinus, was born in 1856. So although we don't have any personal writings from Christiane, we have a few from her children to give us a bit of insight into what their home was like. Her daughter Andrea writes that while she was a child, their family delighted in church attendance and they frequently went to many different churches often. From this, we can assume that they had a pretty religious household and that Christiane and her husband Thomas, at the very least, encouraged and permitted church attendance in their home, and it seems as though they might not have had an affinity to one single church, but that is only an assumption. Another daughter, Maren, writes a few of her memories from her childhood. She writes that her father kept a very strict household, often giving out hard punishments. That being said, they were well off since it is recorded that Thomas owned his own land, and we can also assume that they were very educated since Christiane's father was a school teacher and likely valued education. Moreover, in the accounts that I read, it said that Christiane's children attended school for the complete amount of time back then. When her children were all growing up, several of them began to join churches that Christiane and Thomas did not know much of, and it made them worried. Several of Christiane's children also began to leave and emigrate to the United States in this time. From reading the children's accounts, it seems as though Thomas, Christiane's husband, was a little strict, and it also seems as though some of the children left, perhaps of their own will, as soon as they were able to. Now that being said, it seems as though Thomas, at some point, began to soften his heart, perhaps due to his children growing up or leaving the country. We have one account from Andrea who writes that although she had joined a church contrary to her parents' beliefs, and after living away from her parents for some time, she was welcomed back into the home of Christiane and Thomas when she became very ill and was unable to care for herself. In 1877, when Christiane was around 68 years old, her husband passed away. At this time, many of her children had already left Denmark for the United States. In 1887, Christiane's son James, now living in the United States, actually returned to Denmark as a missionary. While in Denmark, he visited his mother and they were able to spend some time together. James then continued on traveling around in the area, and when he returned to visit his mother again sometime later, he learned that she had gone blind and was unable to see. Christiane at this time desired to join James and his church back in America, and so arrangements were made for her to emigrate, and James was kind enough to iron out all the details and found a woman to accompany Christiane from Denmark to Utah while he continued being a missionary in the area. Christiane is said to have spoken Danish to the very end of her life, never really mastering English. It is also written that she hummed while she rocked in her chair and would knit, getting help from her grandchildren when she dropped something. I believe that once in the U.S. she lived with James and his family, since she is listed in their household in the 1900 census. On January 5th, 1902, a few months before her 93rd birthday, Christiane passed away. It is said that despite her blindness in her later years, that she was always happy and positive to the very end. What a great example Christiane was. I think she was a great example and showed much kindness through her acts. One such example is her adopting 3 of her husband's children and raising them as her own. I also really enjoyed seeing the snippet of information about her always being very happy, despite her being blind. I think that is a great and powerful story. Well, I hope we all learned something from Christiane's life, and I again encourage everyone to learn something about their own ancestors and to share it. And if you enjoyed this episode, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and YouTube to learn more about interesting people and history.